Candid Talk. Welcome to the Spanglish World Network on Zingo TV channel 250. Please remember to download the Zingo TV app at the respective app stores for iOS and Android devices. While you download, make sure you rate and leave a comment. Both apps are absolutely free. Zingo TV is available on Google Chromecast, Amazon Fire, Fire TV sticks, Roku sticks, and also on all smart TVs 2016 forward. Now on Leaf Talk, joining me is Aaron William Freeland, and a little later in one of our soccer discussions, Eduardo Harari will join us. Aaron, how are you doing? It's Friday. I guess you got hockey tonight, right? Or did it already all happen? And are you still in?
Our playoffs go for 5 weeks, and then the finals are in the 6th. So we got a bye for the first week because we were in first place, and we start our second round of games today.
All right. I meant to send you. I don't know if I can do it now. I'll send it.
I've got it, Frank. It's popped up in the chat. I've got it pulled up already. We're good to go.
Oh, okay.
If it's the officiating in goals, yeah, I've got that.
Okay. First of all, it looks it really clears things up, doesn't it?
Yeah, a lot of the times I know that we get accused of complaining a lot about refereeing and officiating and how it affects us and whatnot. I'm just thinking to myself, based on what you sent me there, how much further ahead we would be if we actually got the calls that we deserved to have.
Well, that analytics, which this is, right? This is analytics. We talked a little bit about it last night. I warned you that I'd want to talk about this. For the folks at home, if you watch the broadcast on TSN, whether you watch the Leaf pregame or you watch the second intermission, you had the privilege of seeing Bob McKenzie came on. He doesn't come often on. They joke that he's on vacation. He comes a few times, like a half dozen times all season. So this was one of the times. And I'll read it to you because I can't display it for you. I apologize. Over a 5-year period, Tampa Bay, first in goals, third in power play. Toronto, second in goals, 29th in power play. There's only 32 teams. There was 31 when this was going on. Florida, third in goals, second in power play. Colorado, fourth in goals, first in power play. Do you see the difference there? For those of you that are watching, I know Aaron sees it. So using analytics, and the presumption here is, and I'll call it a presumption just to be fair, that the teams that score the most goals, by virtue of their ability to score, tempts the other teams to foul them more because of their productivity. Fair, Aaron?
No, definitely fair.
Right? So now what Aaron and I are looking at and talking to you about, all these times that we talk about the Leafs and we see some stuff that makes us, kind of scratch our heads. And if you're a Leaf fan, you probably get right to the bone after a while because there's a lot of head scratching going on. So this year, the officiating, Florida was first in goal scoring, second in power play. Colorado was second in goal scoring, first in power play. Toronto was third in goal scoring, and they were 27th in power play. Now, Minnesota, the league doesn't like that much if you go by these numbers because they were fourth in goal scoring, and they were all the way down to 12th, which is less than halfway down to where the Leafs are. So, we talk about this all the time. So there's a trend there. Whether you look at it a protracted 5-year period or a single year period, there's a constant.
There definitely is. And I know a lot of people will say, well, the Leafs are already scoring so much anyways. Giving them more power play opportunities would be cheating in their favor.
No, Aaron, I don't think so. If that's what they're telling you, they're, you know what?
Yeah.
They do this, right? They do this. And it was Bob McKenzie who I think was a part of putting this statistical package together. He's the one who basically said, well, people say the Leafs got every advantage. And he said it simply. And he's not a guy who's a pro-Leaf guy. He's a guy who's a National Hockey League, Hockey News, national, he is a friend of the National Hockey League. If you understand what I'm saying, that he speaks from that perspective. He's well respected. And he came out and he said, this tells you that this is crazy. How is this possible that the Leafs are treated this way by virtue of how they play and how the referees officiate? I want to say this very carefully, to allow them to play from, on the same level playing field as other teams. In other words, why are they this is basically saying the Leafs are punished because they need to be brought down to the level of other teams. So they're being held back. And this is not fair. And the biggest thing that got me about this whole rigmarole, Aaron, the thing that smashed me in the head, 30 seconds, 40 seconds into the game, you want to describe what happened 40 seconds, 30 seconds into the game?
Well, there was a fairly obvious call that was quite blatantly missed.
A cross check.
Yes.
To the neck.
Above the shoulders. Yes.
Above the shoulders to the neck. Where have I heard that before? Where have I heard that before?
Now, here's the interesting thing that I'd like to point out, though, and this is interesting. On the day that this is brought up, the Leafs had 6 power play opportunities to the Jets 3. Now, there were an additional 4 incidents in that game that could have been called as penalties that were not. There was the cross-check on Michael Bunting. That was right beside Matthews. That wasn't called. There was a shot to the head of Justin Hall. He was down on one knee trying to play the puck, and somebody ran him over. There was a
something similar to Spezza getting called 6 games and shrunk to 4.
Then there was Pierre Engvall got tripped along the boards. The referees, I think, argued that his stick made contact with the puck on the way through, but if you watch the replay, it wasn't even close. And there was another hit by Pierre-Luc Dubois, who's getting a reputation for throwing these sorts of things, where he threw an elbow and a knee at
simultaneously.
That could have been called for both. So instead of having just 6 penalties right there, they technically could have been called for 10. Now, the one thing that this says to me is this.
Yes.
If they did actually get called for 10 penalties, it means that the Jets just cannot hang with the Toronto Maple Leafs. They've got to do this to try to stay even. Do I want to see 10 penalties called in the game? No. But when they're that obvious, you kind of gotta.
Now, here's what I'm going to say to that. I'm going to be consistent with what I say, generally speaking, in officiating and penalties and penalty calling. It's all about the whistles being put away. We don't have to talk about why and not make this a Leaf generic comment. I'll make this just a National Hockey League comment. If the officiating is inconsistent and the officials change the rules as the game is going on, we've heard it all, folks. You all heard it. Well, it's a playoff game. Understood. We all get that. It's late in the game. Okay, we get that. It's a close game. Okay, we get that. We don't want to give a team an advantage. Okay, we get that. But here's what we don't get is when it coincidentally, this is another coincidence. Coincidentally, on the evening when the TV network defines an issue, right, in clarity, statistically shows it. And then what happens? The officiating all of a sudden calls more penalties than they normally call on behalf of the Leafs. And to Aaron's point, it's not enough to keep up with the amount of penalties that should have been called. Here's my explanation. During a game, that happens a lot. It's a normal circumstance where Leafs don't get calls. They take punches to the head. They take goaltenders. I can tell you on one hand, I can name 5 occasions, which I won't bother doing, where Leaf goalies have been concussed because a player crossed across the crease and elbowed him in the head. I've seen that on at least 5 occasions in the last 8 years, but last 8 years, something like that. Haven't seen a penalty, haven't seen a suspension. And I maintain the reason that is, we joke about the Leafs not being liked. We joke about it, right? Because it's funny. But the truth is, the Maple Leaf organization historically has never had the power to complain to the level of a Neely in Boston, the people in Philadelphia who have a lot of political power, and other teams that have the ability to talk to the league and make sure the league pays attention to them. The reason I say another supporting fact in that is when Austin Matthews was suspended, they announced during the game that it would be reviewed. And we've seen the same call, same kind of call. You don't hear about a review until a couple of days, and the media is waiting for it. So to me, it sounds like special treatment, not the good kind that the Leafs get. And we're going to start, and here's my prediction for you to complete the circle what happens is, if until now the Leafs weren't getting fair officiating, and all of a sudden the league has to cover its, you know what, then what's going to happen is until the rest of the teams and the officials, the message gets out there that you're not going to be able to do that extra little shit you could do it against Toronto before. You're going to have to get punished now if you do it. And that's what Winnipeg was doing. Winnipeg did it the last time out. They did it this time. And you knew the Leafs were going to be ready for something like that because of the players they put in the lineup. They put specific players in the lineup.
Here's an interesting side note. I know that Kyle Clifford did actually step up against Brendan Dillon. So that was cool.
But and at then the end of the game when it was irrelevant.
But then there was also Lowry versus Simmons. And Lowry and Simmons had been jawing at each other after that particular event for a good 3 or 4 minutes while they were trying to sort out penalties. Lowry then draws up to take the draw. Simmons is on the wing. The referee throws Lowry out. So Lowry goes over and stands beside Simmons. And the referee then decides to kick both players out of the game. Now, I'm not saying that that's evidence of game management, but manipulating a player's role on the ice in order to remove them from a given situation in an attempt to diffuse a situation smacks of game management. Had certain calls been made earlier in the game, tensions wouldn't have been inflamed to that point. It is the referee's responsibility to call penalties and infractions of the rules. Yes, but they're also required to use their discretion. Part of the referee's job is also to maintain the flow of the game and, to a certain extent, a little bit of game control or game management in that you're supposed to try to diffuse the situation as an official. You're not supposed to just let them play, because more often than not, that results in bad things happening.
Well, I mean, this is an argument that can go on for decades, right? But I'm of the belief that if you call penalties the way they're supposed to be called, players don't transgress, right? They don't do things that could be penalized. If they don't get penalized for things that they should get penalized for, what do you think players are going to do? They're going to keep doing it. So this thing about the Leafs getting unfair treatment, I want to place this I'm going to give more evidence. If one goes back to Nazem Kadri and his suspension and what happened to him, you have a look at what happened to him. During that series against the Bruins were doing things after the whistle. They did things at the end of the period. Punches to the face that weren't penalized at all. The rough abuse that the genteel Leafs, who they are, that's who they were then, that's who they are less today. And they got away with it. And what happened was Kadri had basically the burden of the world on his shoulders. I think that's all. I'm not making excuses for him, because it's not that I want the Leafs to not get penalties. I want them to get penalties. I want everybody to get penalties based on the rule book. I don't want to see any more of this. And most people, I think, agree with me. We want to see officiating that's consistent from whistle to whistle or whistle to buzzer, however you want to define 60 minutes and or the playoffs. They should be calling penalties because they're penalties. And let's keep this clear. The best example of saying not calling a penalty so that you don't affect the game, the goal that was the winner for the Montreal Canadiens in the most recent game the Leafs played, there was a slew foot on Austin Matthews, and Montreal ended up with the puck and scored a goal. You can call me a homer for saying that, but what you can't call me is inaccurate. because that's actually what happened.
Yeah, and I think the frustration arises from the fact that it's not that the Leafs don't have calls in their favor.
Absolutely.
There are calls that definitely, most assuredly, go in the Maple Leafs' favor on occasion, but on the whole, you look at the list of teams that are doing well when it comes to scoring and the scoring race and how many penalties they've had called in their favor versus how the Leafs are doing and how many penalties that they've had called in their favor. And you got to wonder, like, what exactly is going on here?
We're talking here, the difference that we're talking about is the exception versus the rule, right? If the rule is the exception, if you follow what I'm saying. So the problem is, quite frankly, this goes back decades. This goes back to when Philadelphia came to Toronto and Rod Sealing came out of the corner all bloodied and everything. Salming was bloodied. They had a game. They went in the corner. They were beat. They had the crap beat out of them by the Philadelphia Flyers. The fans couldn't take it anymore. And some of the fans were politicians. And they finally put their foot down and said, you know what? This is ridiculous. This is not hockey. This is not hockey. This is brutality. And they charged the Philadelphia Flyer players. I'm not saying we're at that point now, but where we are the people who matter, who are important in the community, in Ontario, in Toronto, and wherever. It's time for us to stand up and say, you know what? We don't like what you're doing. And if TSN's numbers are accurate, we want an explanation. We want the National Hockey League to tell us why those numbers are the way they are. We want to know from the National Hockey League, is there a bias against the Toronto Maple Leafs? And we want you to tell us how there isn't. Show us how there isn't a bias against the Maple Leafs. I'll add one more set of circumstances. When the Kadri got suspended, he got treated for what he did. There's no doubt what he did is what he did. No doubt about it. Should have been penalized. But there was other things that went on. If you remember Hyman when he got that penalty for the late hit, do you remember all the late hits that happened before Hyman?
I do.
There was a debate going on. Then Hyman got a suspension for his late hit. And then did you notice that after Hyman got suspended, they went back to giving fines again after that with players who were doing late hits? That's part of my proof. You just have to go back to where the Leaf players are suspended, then watch all the reviewed and listen to the responses the National Hockey League makes for all the other players that have done the exact same thing and how they're treated by the league. And you will find what I'm telling you is the Leaf players, it seems, are always the example. They're the ones that are taught the lesson. 6-game suspension awarded to Spezza. A 6-game suspension. Unheard of. So why did Spezza get that penalty? I'm telling you why, because he's a Leaf. And we're here in Toronto and in this community, we're responsible for making sure the league doesn't look like something's wrong. And that's got to end. The league has to look like there's not something wrong, not just Toronto. And it goes back to back then. And it's infuriating because I pull for the fans. I'm not a Leaf fan. I'm a Toronto fan. I'm the first to admit it. I am a Toronto fan. If you're asking why, I'm a Toronto fan because I was born in this city and I'm proud of this city and I've seen championships even before the Raptors. And it's always been a blessing to see Toronto fans and people celebrating a championship that they earned. And I want to see it again. And I don't want to not see it because a team is disfavored by the league. Final point. The Toronto Raptors and the Vancouver Grizzlies came into the NBA together. You remember that, right?
Yep.
For 5 years. For 5 years. The first time it ever happened in the NBA, they were not allowed to win the lottery and get the first overall pick. For 5 years, they weren't allowed to have the first overall pick. No other team that joined the NBA ever had to go through that. Why did Toronto and Vancouver have to go through that? It's because we're Canadian, and they could do that to us. They couldn't do it to an American team. And why do they feel they can do it against Canadian teams? And why can Canadian teams be treated this way? Because we're Canadians, because we're apologetic. Even when we're being abused, we say, "Oh, sorry, sorry, didn't mean to anger you. Sorry." Well, it's time for us to pick up on what TSN pointed out, and good for them that they finally shot a took a shot across the bow of the National Hockey League. Is all I can say.
Yeah, there is something else I wanted to mention as well. Going into the general managers meetings, they were specifically instructed not to talk about officiating.
Now,
word came down from on high from Bettman and Daly that they were not permitted, at the risk of being fined, to talk about NHL officiating during the general managers meetings in Florida.
who's running the National Hockey League? Vladimir Putin?
Yeah. Okay.
Is Putin running the National Hockey League? No, this is a free market country, and North America, period. Free market, and also freedom of speech. If someone has a complaint against an employer, they have a right to do that. And if the Maple Leafs feel they have proof that they're being mistreated, the National Hockey League does not have the right to say you can't talk about it. Now, maybe they can say you can talk about it privately, but are they talking about it privately? You know, we know that the National Hockey League, unfortunately, has a history of, when it comes to abuse, they do tend to ignore it until they're caught with, until they're caught. And this to me is not that kind of abuse. It doesn't rise up in any way to other kinds of abuse that they've had to deal with. But it's still abuse if it's true. If the Leafs for some reason are being treated differently, or if there are other teams like the Leafs who are being treated differently and they're not being treated equally and fairly, the league doesn't have a right to hide it. They have to deal with it. And they're not dealing with this problem. They didn't deal with it back when the Flyers came into Toronto and beat the crap out of hockey players like Rod Sealing. Can you imagine? He was he was the tough guy that they picked on. So I've seen it all my life, and part of it has to do with Toronto is the hockey team is not a respected. After having the Ballard years, this organization is fighting tooth and nail to try and earn respect, and it's hard. It's hard for MLSC to get respect for their hockey team.
It is what it is, there, all the numbers are there. The NHL has access to all of these numbers. If they wanted to actually correct the issue, they'd do something about it, but it's obvious that they don't. Money is going to roll in from Toronto anyway.
Well, I think that's the underlying issue, is that they can afford to the idea is that the Leaf fans will put up with anything, you see, and you know what they do? They have.
Yep.
They put up with anything for a long time. They are very docile fans, and I'm glad that I don't want to lose that politeness that Toronto fans have, that decency that people in Toronto have. I don't want to lose that. But I would like to see what I saw from TSN last night, which is just putting the facts out there and politely saying, "Please, sir, would you look into this issue? Please, sir, if you're abusing us and if you're taking advantage of us financially, like an extra $10 million coming out of MLSC to support the National Hockey League that no other team has to pay, please, sir, don't do that anymore. We would appreciate to be treated nicely and equally to the other teams. And we just want to ask you a question. Are we? And if not, can you do something about it?" I'm not asking for people to run onto the streets and go crazy. No, we don't need that. What we need, though, is we need a lot of voices that say, is it real what TSN posted? What they showed us last night? Is that real? And if it's real, why is that? That's all.
Yeah.
Nobody's looking for any kind of, this isn't the truck convoy here. That's not what I'm interested in. What I'm interested in is freedom of speech and responsibility and accountability.
Like, honestly, I just want everything applied equally across the board. That's all. I want the same rules for everyone. I don't want a specific set of rules for one team and a different set of rules for another.
Well, what got established last night, Aaron, is the National Hockey League didn't pass the sniff test.
Mm-hmm.
At the end of the day, that's what it's all about. But it is what it is. I have my beefs with the National Hockey League for the most part because I feel they treat Canadian fans not well. and they don't have the same respect for Canadian teams as they do for American teams. Winnipeg and Quebec, they were yanked out so fast by Bettman, they didn't get a chance. It was the next best thing to moving out of the city overnight, right?
Yep.
And look what they're doing with Arizona. They're bending over backwards not to move that team. Winnipeg and Quebec didn't get that privilege. And that's Are you okay, Eduardo?
Yes.
Oh, okay.
Good. Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, a couple more things with the National Hockey. Then we're going to talk about soccer and what's going on there. The Habs, Justin Bieber. They had a little difference of opinion. Hab fans and Justin Bieber.
Yeah, he was at his concert, and he came out wearing a Leafs jersey, so they started booing him, and then he asked them how they were enjoying their current playoff position, and they did not respond favorably.
I don't think they would. Former Leaf goaltender shut the Canadians out 4-0.
Yeah, no, Anderson's been on a real tear this season. So I'm glad to see that he's still performing well. I'm glad to see that he's still beating the Habs. That's a good thing. I'm hoping that it isn't too much of a shock when he comes back to earth and Carolina fans get to see playoff Anderson, which is different from regular season Anderson.
Absolutely. The Senators lost to Nashville.
Tyler Jeannot got fined in that particular game for kneeing Brady Tkachuk on the way through.
Yikes.
So it's one of those gifts that keeps on giving. But still entertaining hockey. It just 4-1 final wasn't exactly what they were looking for.
So that World Junior Championship that I guess is being canceled, the one that's in Russia. I think this is the one that they're talking about, Aaron, Quebec City, Ottawa.
Yeah, it's an exploratory bid currently, just seeing if Quebec City and Ottawa can host it in tandem. So I'm not sure if anything's going to come out of that, but we'll have to see what happens. I'm definitely going to keep eyes on that for sure.
Trial date set for former Vancouver Canuck.
Now, this was an issue that came up last year. I know that there had been additional follow-up to that, but finally, there is actually a trial date that's been set. He's due to appear in court on July 18th. He was charged with 1 count of sexual assault in January of this year, following a police investigation into an incident that took place on September 26, 2017, back when he was still active with the Canucks.
Also, O'Reilly, St. Louis Blues, and Vancouver, another loss, a close one this time. They need
this was a much closer shave this time, but unfortunately, it looks like St. Louis has managed to sweep Vancouver this season. So that's pretty much all there is to it. O'Reilly had a goal and an assist, and they put another nail in the coffin when it comes to the Canucks and getting to the playoffs.
Winnipeg needs every break they can get. Connor and Schmidt. COVID protocol is still going on.
Yeah, no, this is one of those things that never quite goes away, unfortunately. Couldn't happen to them at a worse time, especially coming into Toronto to play the Maple Leafs. But as it turns out, Connor and Schmidt did both end up on protocols. They're going to have to test negative a couple times before they can get out. But hopefully they'll be back sooner rather than later, just to try to keep their hopes alive. Now, their intention is to have them come back April 6th when the Jets host the Detroit Red Wings. So that's the intention.
Yeah, good for them. So Matthews got his 50th against Winnipeg, and it was a game that everybody anticipated some problems were possible, and Keefe made his lineup reflect that.
Now, the good part is that adding those two, the players that he did to the lineup didn't negatively affect them. Some people had feared that putting those players into the lineup, in particular Clifford, might have been detrimental, but turned out not to be that much of an issue, mainly because the Jets just didn't seem to be able to keep up with the Leafs. I'm not sure if it's a long bus trip they took out of Manitoba to get to Toronto.
Well, they played Buffalo the night before, right?
Well,
they went into a shootout loss.
No, that's fair, but it's the NHL. They're in good shape. They're young folks.
Everybody has to go through it. The irony that I liked, I don't know if you picked up on it, but I don't know if there was a picture of Shalgren giving Matthews a hug. And, because when he gave him a hug, right, I didn't see it. I was looking for it, but it never happened. I didn't see it. I missed it or whatever. But it would have been nice to have a picture of Matthews with his arms around Shalgren, right, with his face to the camera and Shalgren's back with the 50 and Matthews hugging the 50.
That would have been nice.
Hey, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That was an opportunity. It's too bad. I don't know if anybody picked up on that. That's the kind of stuff I like. Anyway, that would be a nice picture with him hugging 50 because he did that night. And Shalgren was, he look here in Toronto. Leaf fans are tough on goaltenders here. It's become a tradition now, and the fact remains that we know that Leaf fans are unfair with their goaltenders. Because we're looking at a goaltender right now who we just talked about shutting out, the Ottawa Senators, and he being Anderson. And Anderson is leading the league in, I think, or close anyway, goals against, right? He's in the top when it comes to, wins, and he's playing well enough to be called a good goaltender. Nothing like the way he was treated by the Leafs. Fair?
No, very fair.
How do you feel?
But I mean, it is what we do. We expect perfection out of our goalies, and when we get anything less than a 950 or a 960,
if Leaf fans keep doing that, they're going to become the Philadelphia Flyers. And we know how long the Flyers have been looking for a goaltender.
Oh yeah, far too long.
And they've had some really good ones. They have a really good one now. I hope they salvage because he's a great kid, great Canadian kid. Worked wonders for our junior team. Great talent. Let's hope that they straighten that mess out. How they treat their goaltenders. I don't know if Philly fans can change. They just, they boo Santa Claus. So it was kind of hard. The Flames, Anderson scores, shootout winner.
Yeah. So on this particular night, that was Thursday night, Elias Anderson got the deciding goal in the shootout. Cal Peterson made 26 saves as the Kings got a win over Calgary. This is in contrast to the night before where they played the Edmonton Oilers. And Draisaitl and McDavid beat the Kings also in a shootout, but this time 4-3. So back-to-back for the Kings in Edmonton and Calgary. One win, one loss out of all of that. Come out of there with a couple of points. Edmonton and Calgary don't go anywhere in relation to each other in the standings.
McDavid is moving along on the points race. He's doing great there. Draisaitl's keeping up with, obviously, Matthews. They win again.
Yeah, no, I'm glad to see them keeping a little bit of their winning ways going there. Now he's at 100 points again. McDavid is for the 5th time in his career. Cody Ceci also had a goal in that game, and Mikko Koskinen had 38 saves for the Oilers. Now that's their 8th straight win at home, so it's good to see them being a little more consistent in that regard too.
All right, let's get Eduardo in here, being the soccer fan that he is, and this morning the draw was done. The results for who will be in which group. There's 8 groups in the World Cup, and Canada's group has been established. Eduardo, we'll let you. Why don't you start with your take on the group that Canada finds itself in?
I'll go back to the comment that I made to Aaron before the show started, Frank, because to me, Canada got the bad end of this, considering that we are CONCACAF champions. We were technically, until the last game, undefeated, and we get shoved into a group F with the number 2 team in the world, with the number 15th team in the world, and with the number 34th team in the world.
In other words, all 4 teams were 30 or higher,
correct,
including Canada.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, the U.S. and Mexico, who took till the last game of the qualifiers to qualify, they end up in groups very easily they can advance with. I mean, so let's talk about Group F, because Group F is going to be probably whoever wins Group F might take the World Cup. If you think about it,
Okay.
You have a Belgian team that was undefeated in qualifying play in Europe. You It has never been like that ever in Europe. There has been no team that has gone undefeated, and Belgium did it. Um, then
They just lost their first overall in the last week.
yeah,
So they were. Aaron, tell us what you think of the group, and then Eduardo, we can advance and see how the group's, how Canada's going to do moving down the line if they will. What do you think of the group, Aaron?
I think particularly we're in tough. Morocco's been consistent there. As Eduardo mentioned, Croatia is always tough to play. They always seem to come
They
up
play
with
really
big
well
victories.
in the World Cup. They play well in the World Cup.
And Belgium is one of those dark horse teams. Two in the world. I've seen games where they've been absolutely spectacular, and I've seen games where they've absolutely stunk. So we'll see which team shows up for the World Cup this year. But we are definitely in tough in this particular division.
Well, the experts, I listened to soccer experts, read some articles, and got some information from the experts, and I stored it in my memory bank, whatever good that is. And what I saw what I see when I see this group, I didn't get a chance to watch it live, so I just saw it right now. So I haven't had much time to wrap my head around this. But what I can tell you is from what I've read and listened and watched, these are the kinds of teams that you don't want Canada to play against. That's the impression that I get. Teams like Croatia, Morocco, and Belgium were actually stated by the experts specifically that it'd be better if Canada didn't end up, playing against those guys. Canada would have been better to play against a group like Brazil. I know that sounds crazy. That's what they were saying. I guess because of the overrated nature of the game and what it would be, and Canada's done a good job. Like Switzerland's another team that Canada might do better against, and unfortunately they didn't quite make it. So yeah, I have concerns here, but I think we have to also look at it in a way that this is not the same Canadian team or level of play Canadian team that went to the 1986 draw, right? This is a better team, than that team in relation to the rest of the teams. Soccer has improved drastically in many countries. Let's get that straight. But Canada is one of those countries that has made progress, a lot of progress, Eduardo. And they're a lot better than they were in 86. So I think we'll definitely see a goal this time. The last time they played, they didn't score a goal in the 3 games that they played. I think this will be a better offensive team. And I think within that offense, that talented offense that they can generate, the defense can help in that regard and help put them into. That's where defense is going to be really important.
So the other thing that I kind of disliked was being Group F, that they got also kind of gets now probably the worst times to play at.
Oh,
In during the World Cup, they are going to be playing all their games, if not all of them, from noon till 2 o'clock in the afternoon, either at noon or at 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So think about it. You are
wow.
in the middle of the desert in Qatar,
Yeah.
playing at high heat time.
Yeah.
That's not going to be beneficial to. I mean, Morocco.
The reverse of what we saw when Canada came to play in Edmonton.
Yeah.
What do you think, Aaron? What do you think about?
I'll be honest with you. This isn't my uncle's Team Canada. This is definitely a squad that is more geared to compete in the current competitive climate. The good news is Davies is training again with Germany. He's actually due back for Bayern Munich, I believe, by April 12th, which is another bonus for us. That means he'll get some playing time and some minutes under his belt before we actually get into the World Cup proper. So that's good news for Canada. But yeah, playing at the times that they're going to be playing at is not going to be fun for the Canadian team at all. I don't envy them that, but at the same time, this is a team that's risen to fight adversity every single chance it's had and every single time they've played. So I have faith that this team will show out well for us.
Nothing creates camaraderie and teamwork better than feeling like you're not good enough. Because this is a team that's had the, they weren't good enough to win the division, CONCACAF, right? They weren't good enough to do that until they were. And the same thing's going to be true with the World Cup. They're not good enough to advance until they do. And it's all possible. Dreams are there for a reason, and these players are big dreamers.
Now, I am interested to see who's coming out of Group B. I know that there's still a couple positions there yet to be determined. We're looking at either Wales or Scotland or Ukraine. So that's going to be interesting there. Personally, my money's on Scotland. I'd like to see them come out. Group D, we're looking at Peru, Australia, or the United Arab Emirates. And then in Group E, we're looking at Costa Rica or New Zealand. So there's still some spots to be determined, which are going to be interesting.
Now, the Netherlands are a team that have had a lot of issues in recent times. They're not as good as they've been in the past. They were like a #1 ranked team for the longest time. They kind of lucked out in Group A with Qatar.
100%. I mean, if you look at that group, the two, and we have to remember, only the first two teams advance from each group.
That's right. Yep.
So Qatar and Netherlands are to advance from there. I don't see Senegal or Ecuador doing much. Ecuador had its battles trying to qualify. So I don't see anything happening there. From Group B, if I had to choose right now, not considering whether Scotland makes it or not, you have England and the US that are the sure teams to advance in that group.
You don't think either whoever gets in, Ukraine and company, they won't offer enough resistance to the US?
I don't think Ukraine will get in, considering all the stuff that is going on.
Yeah, what's going on?
Right
Yep.
now. So if it's Scotland, and Scotland has to face the US and England back-to-backs.
Yep.
Games, I don't see much chance of them winning back-to-back games against the two tough teams.
What do you think of that group, Aaron? We can go one group at a time and everybody have a comment.
Well, honestly, I would love to see Team USA beat England, and I would love to see Team Scotland beat England. So those are my two calls.
So you're hoping Scotland and the US advance?
That's correct.
I gotcha. And then we've got Group C. This one is really interesting. Poland is a much better team than people might realize. Mm-hmm. Saudi Arabia is playing basically on home ground. It's as close to home ground as they can have, right?
Yeah.
And Argentina is a team that, I know it's Lionel Messi's last hurrah, but they have not been much of a danger over the past few World Cups. I don't know if they'll be able to rise this. I got to tell you, Mexico really lucked out. That's all I can say. Mexico lucked out.
I mean, you'll have the battle there between Poland and Mexico. Argentina will advance, being that it is the last hurrah for Lionel Messi, and probably the last time that we'll see him play in Europe after the World Cup, most likely, before he comes over to the wonderful world of the MLS. So I think this is going to be an interesting battle. But yeah, Mexico locked out. I don't know how did they manage to get into that grouping that easy.
It is a good group, Aaron.
Yeah, I'm just saying, my money in this particular one, even though Poland can punch above their weight, and Saudi Arabia are playing at home, my money is on Argentina and Mexico to come out of this group. It's the safest bet.
That's not a tough call.
No.
France, always a danger. Denmark is one of the best teams in the world. I don't know who's going to come out of that IC playoff, but for what I see right now, Denmark and France should go through. Eduardo?
So I have, and I think that playoff is going to be, that is the one with Costa Rica and New Zealand.
Mm-hmm.
If Costa Rica gets into this group, there is going to be a major battle there because the French team hasn't been up to par yet.
Mm-hmm.
I think
and Croatia and Costa Rica has improved.
Costa Rica has improved greatly.
Now, are you talking Group E now or Group D? Because Group D is Peru or Australia and the United Arab Emirates.
Okay, so if it's Peru
and Australia or the UAE is the playoff.
So
this is for Group D, right?
Yeah, Group D.
Okay, so, fair enough.
If it's either of those teams can cause issues for France. In that regards, Peru deserved to be there ahead of Ecuador. Ecuador just scraped a win in penalty kicks at the end of that game. So if Peru gets in, watch out for. I don't think France will make it. Denmark will go through though.
Aaron, real quick, your opinion on that one?
My opinion on this one is actually I'm going to go with Tunisia and France. I think they're good.
Wow. Denmark. I guess I got a thing for Denmark, I guess, and I really think that when push comes to shove, France will do okay. As far as Group E is concerned, it's automatic. I don't know how Germany and Spain lose. Aaron?
Yeah, there are the odds are slim to nil that Spain and Germany don't advance in this particular case. I'm in luck. I actually got a mystery kit with the 2014 Spain jersey in it. I'll be wearing that.
Oh, good for you, buddy.
Yeah.
Eduardo, what do you think? Spain, Germany, pretty safe.
I would love to say Spain is a lock, but I'm not going to say that. Spain hasn't played up to par, and we have seen that played throughout the La Liga very, very heavily with the Spanish players not playing at their best. Germany is a lock, guaranteed lock. I mean, considering that 95% of the team is made out of Bayern Munich, so if you cannot win with the Bayern Munich starting lineup, you're in problems.
Okay, let's go over to G. Brazil. Not as great as they've been before. Serbia has created a lot of surprises. Switzerland always surprises, and the Cameroon are the original African team that introduced to the world the ability of African teams to play in the World Cup. This one here is a toss-up in my mind.
Well, I would say Brazil is a lock to advance. Brazil won't lose probably until.
Well, they're ranked number one. Having said that, absolutely. By toss-up, though, I mean, I don't know if you can pick two teams, Aaron, that are going to come out of this.
I would, if you ask me, is Brazil and Cameroon will come out of this group very, very heavily.
Aaron, what do you think?
I'm just hoping for a Serbia-Croatia match. But, I mean, in all honesty, it's going to be Brazil and Switzerland.
You're a horrible man. Why do you have to bring the news into this? Group H, Portugal, China, Uruguay, Korea Republic. Well, I mean, Portugal, Uruguay, another one of those South American great teams that, has lost the luster that they had for many years. Has China developed enough, in your opinion, Aaron, to be competitive here?
South Korea, I think, has come a long way, not necessarily far enough.
Last World Cup, they did great. They did.
Yeah, they did. But my money here is on Portugal and Uruguay.
Eduardo?
Look, Ghana is one of the teams that can be, I think, can give surprises. Ghana is the African champion. So I would say Portugal and Ghana moving forward. And it's going to be an interesting because remember that Ghana is a Portuguese colony, technically. So it's going to be an interesting battle there. Uruguay didn't show too much in the classification for World Cup this year in Copa Libertadores. So I don't know about them. And the Korean Republic are always a threat. So, but I see Ghana and Portugal advancing.
Now, this is a simple question. How dedicated, Aaron, are you going to be watching? If 100% watching all the games is 100%, watching none of the games is 0%, what percentage do you see us? Of course, we assume you'll be watching the Canada games as I will, but how much of the games will you be watching?
In all fairness, I'm going to be trying to catch as many of the games as I possibly can with the teams that interest me.
So Scotland.
So Netherlands for one, Scotland if Scotland makes it, for sure. Mexico, going to be checking in on Tunisia because I love my underdogs. Spain, Canada for sure. Switzerland I'll be keeping tabs on, and maybe Portugal. I guess we'll see.
Eduardo?
Well, since I will be there, watching from within, most of the time I will be at the Canada site to watch that round robin. But I will try to make it definitely to my favorite team in the world, which is Brazil. I have been a Brazilian fan since I saw Pelé beat my home country by himself because everyone else was sitting with the goalie in the opposition net. So yeah, I will. But the teams to watch, I mean, as always, I mean, Germany, Spain, Portugal. I mean, is the last time that you will see Cristiano Ronaldo also on the pitch. So you have to watch for the big names that are coming out of there. There is in the English team, you have players that are not going to be coming back. You have to remember, this World Cup is the World Cup of the 30 plus that are leaving, and it's going to be a big push for one of those big names in the 30 plus category to give us a surprise and for his team to win. And that's where you have the Messis, the Ronaldos, you have Kaufman out of Germany. So you have the big names that you want to watch.
Yeah, they're all there. Well, we'll have to leave it there. And I'll just say this as far as my viewing pattern will be. There are teams that I do, the favorites that I do want to watch. And there are some underdogs that I'm going to enjoy watching. And will I tell you right now who they are? For me, I'm reactionary. I see what my schedule looks like, and I try to watch what I can. And if I have a successful World Cup, I'll be watching I'm going to say about 60% of the games. I'll have difficulty to watch all of them. That's even, that's the most difficult thing to do because there's going to be so many games. And those games to be honest, the reason I say what I say is it really doesn't matter who's playing. If you like the game, the beautiful game, it's a beautiful experience and you'll enjoy watching it. It almost doesn't matter which team is playing. But yes, of course, there are always preferences.
And if you think of the time schedule as well, we are 12 hours ahead of Qatar is 12 hours ahead of us for this World Cup. It's going to be a big mess with everybody's schedule.
Yeah, it is what it is. Thank you, Eduardo.
Thank you very much, Frank, for having me.
Thank you, Aaron.
Thanks, Frank.
For Aaron William Freeland and Eduardo Harari, I'm Frank Stanisci. Thank you for watching Candid Frank Live's Leaf Talk Open Forum, seen live Fridays at 6 p.m. This show can also be heard on the Spanglish World Radio Network. For Leaf Talk, other news, entertainment, and sports programming we offer, please check out spanglishworld.ca. Spanglish World. Watch it, hear it, read it, download it, and live it. Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next week.